I love popcorn, air popped popcorn. And, it's depending on how you want to source them and what your feelings are about corn. It's still a great source of fiber, and it's a lot of volume, not a lot of calories, and it's really satisfying to me.
Marcus Philly, I've known you for like 5 years now. You're always 8% body fat or leaner, and you do so in a very healthy way, if you ask me, at least from what I see and what I know of you. You are one of the few people on the internet that I can safely ask and know that I'm going to get an honest answer. Like, what are your key sort of golden rules for maintaining at least sub 10% body fat year round?
After today's video, I put a link down below for 15% off ARMRA Colostrum. Colostrum is one of the coolest things that I've added into my life in the last couple of years. Now, it is something that is really, really unique, especially with ARMRA, because they are pretty much the only one that has this cold potent technology, which means that it's maintaining the bioactive compounds in the colostrum. So normally, if you get colostrum, it's heated and it defeats the entire purpose of the microbial benefit, of the gut effect, because all the bioactive compounds get incinerated in the heat. So a cold potent technology that ARMRA uses makes it so it's actually preserving the integrity of the colostrum the way that it's truly supposed to be. That's why they're really taking the world by storm, and they've put colostrum back on the map in a world where colostrum was kind of felt to be almost hokey because it didn't really work. Now, the evidence with colostrum and the lactoferrin in colostrum, I've done videos talking about it. It's awesome. So anyhow, that link is down below. You go to tryarmra.com/Thomas, tryarmra.com/Thomas, and that is a 15% off discount link, top line of the description underneath this video.
Number one, walk your off. Walking is it's my number one cheat code to just staying lean and keeping a good body composition. If I'm ever out of my normal training routine or I'm away from home, that is the one thing I just grab a hold of and say, you know what, I'm going to get more steps in when I'm on vacation, when we're visiting family. It's something that's accessible to anybody, and it is just so underappreciated how much that can impact your overall body composition and energy output. And it goes beyond just like how many total steps did you get in a day. It's the mentality of get up and move and keep that on your mind at any point in your waking hours so that you fight this undercurrent of staying sedentary. There's too many opportunities for people to sit, and cultural conditioning and the things that we have access to just make life more comfortable and almost like draw you magnetically to sitting and not moving. So if you wake up each day and I have to get steps in, I have to move my body, where is there an opportunity to get steps? It really changes your overall energy output on a given day, and that compounding over months, years, decades leads to massive, massive changes, I think, in people's body compositions, particularly for keeping weight management and keeping, whether it's 8% body fat or just a healthy body weight for a long time. And I know a lot of people talk about it, but I don't hear people talking about it from the perspective of, it's not just about the total number of steps. It's about a mentality of each day you have to get up and move. You have to get out of the chair, fight the urge to sit, choose opportunities to walk instead of ride, wherever possible.
You know what's wild is like hearing you say that. A couple weeks ago, my wife and I were on this like just kick of like cleaning the house pretty aggressively that weekend. Like I came home from the gym in the morning and my wife was just like, I can't take it. We got to like declutter and stuff like that. And like I had every intent of like getting a couple walks in and like just kind of a typical weekend. But we spent the weekend, it was really hot out. So we weren't outside. So we were just around the house, just like getting rid of stuff in the garage and just moving around throughout the house. Next thing I know, end of the day, I'm at 17,000 steps.
Yeah.
Walking around, and this is, by the way, a 1,150 square foot house. So it's a small house, right?
Yeah.
Cleaning the garage, moving around. The point is just echoing what you're saying. It's getting up and moving. A lot of times people, maybe they have kids or they don't have the luxury of time, or there's certain things where there's like, I legitimately can't get out and go for a walk right now. And I could make an argument that you could probably find a way, but either way, even within your own home, it's totally doable.
I mean, and a great example of this is my media producer works for our company. His name is Nate. And in the last 6 months, he's lost 40 pounds. And the biggest thing, if you ask him, hey, what has been the biggest thing for you change? It's been steps. And Nate doesn't go out much. And he lives in an apartment that's maybe 200 square feet. And he will, in the gym, when he's, filming me or working on stuff, like he is just walking around all the time. We did an event in Sweden recently, and he shot the event in a small gym. He had like 17,000 steps by like noon. And because it's on his mind now, it's like he's programmed. He has a wearable, which I encourage people to get, something that tracks your steps empirically, so that you can actually see like how much am I moving, even if you don't go out for a 30-minute walk or an hour walk, or you take these long, scenic, walks down the beach. Like it doesn't have to be that. It just has to be fight the urge to stay sedentary, get up, move around, and household chores, walking around your apartment, not sitting, can add up quickly.
Then when it comes down to maintaining the body fat percentage, I mean, that's just like you said, that's probably my cardinal rule too. It's like it's extremely effective for losing weight, but it's ridiculously effective for maintaining the weight loss.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's next in your list?
I have listed lift weights hard AF. So lifting weights hard. That is something that I think in the pursuit of leanness, or trying to stay lean, there's a fixation that gets placed on how do I optimize this energy balance equation? How do I keep my calories down, my energy up, or stay at maintenance or at some type of deficit? Because I think when you're maintaining low levels of body fat, you end up having to kind of bias towards a deficit more often throughout the year. And when you're in that state, it's easy to lose your intensity when you train, because you're undernourished, you're undercaloried. When you lose your intensity when you train, you start taking, I don't want to call it like the easy way out, but you're like, I'm not going to get those last couple reps, or I don't want to push that extra 5 pounds, or you start to, cut corners with your resistance training. And hard resistance training, heavy resistance training relative to your ability it's extremely critical when you're trying to maintain leanness, because you do not want to lose muscle mass. You do not want to, you want to maintain low body fat, but you don't want your muscles to, over time, go catabolic and start to lose tissue, because you want to remain strong, you want to remain functional, and you want to remain looking full in your muscle tissue. And heavy weights, or pushing your weights hard, finding that like, wow, that really floored me just doing that set of bench press or that set of squats. Wow, I really pushed it all the way till failure. Can make a massive impact on your body composition and staying lean over time. Because I can stay lean, anybody can stay lean and kind of push 80% with their weight training. To stay lean, you don't have to like max out. However, if you do push those extra bits of, intensity, effort, RPE, when you're doing your strength training, it pays off, I think, immeasurably in terms of how you look and how easy it is to maintain your leanness, because your metabolic rate of your lean tissue is just that much higher on a consistent basis, which again compounds just like the steps day after day after day.
It's, and how it ties in with the steps is amazing. It's for every step that you take that you have more muscle, you're burning significantly more calories. Like your simple non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your simple activity throughout the day. If you have one person that has 50 pounds of muscle on them, one person that has even 40 pounds of muscle on them, and they do the exact same activities throughout the day, the same number of dishes, the same number of walks around the block, the same numbers of, getting their kids juice cup filled up. Same simple activities, the person with the 10 pounds extra muscle is going to burn a significant amount more just through their simple activities. So just by putting on that mass and maintaining that mass as time goes on, your daily life burns more.
Yeah, and you might be able to speak to this more from a science and evidence perspective, but to me, my experience, my lived experience is that, on paper, having a pound more of muscle doesn't dramatically change your basal metabolism. But the effort required at that level of leanness, or really for anybody, to put on a pound of muscle in terms of resistance training, like the effort that I'm talking about in the gym, instead of doing an 8 out of 10, but doing 10 out of 10 on all 12 of your working sets, that extra effort, the energy required to recover from that seems to be at least measurably and significantly more than when I just kind of not phone it in, but only give that 7 out of 10 effort in the gym. And so doing that repeatedly is, again, something that I think just adds to this energy balance sort of equation that you have to optimize if you want to stay that lean.
Totally. All right, man, what's next?
Do cardio. Just do it. The lean gain, or the lean body crew, the muscle crew out there will probably say, like, there's too much talk about cardio being, not optimal for maintaining muscle mass or maintaining a lean physique. And I just have just too many good examples out there of people who really push their aerobic potential, their aerobic fitness very, very far, and can still maintain a lot of muscle. And when your aerobic fitness is higher, it is so much easier to maintain a lean body composition. So that's something that I experienced in my years as a CrossFit athlete, where being highly aerobic and also strong and muscular they coincided. And the more aerobic I got, the more food I could consume while staying at a lower body composition, and the harder I could then push in my resistance training. It's this G-flux concept that you've talked about plenty, but it's like you're able to eat more, work harder, maintain more muscle because you've built up a big aerobic base of fitness. And so walking, for some people, could be their cardiovascular training if they're somewhat deconditioned, but we're now talking about like being relatively, in good shape, lean body composition. I think developing a practice of pushing your aerobic threshold in some cardio training is super important. And I don't think that's mainstream still. Like, as much as the hybrid athlete is a thing now, and it's been proven, as much as CrossFitters have shown that you can be muscular, lean, and do a lot of cardio, it's just still missing from like the bigger audience out there. Like, you can go out and get in great aerobic shape through cardio, and you can maintain a leaner physique and have more energy for your muscle-based hypertrophy work, resistance training.
There was a big paper that came out, I think it was the end of last year, that was, if you ask me, it sort of put the whole like interference effect like to bed, right? Like, there's always been this talk of the interference effect, both short-term and long-term. And what I mean by interference effect is, I'll describe it in the short term, CrossFit, right? Like, if you go a submaximal deadlift and then go do box jumps, you're interfering with each other and you're not going to progress in either one. Not the case. As a matter of fact, show that people actually excelled. Wasn't particularly better, but like in that context, especially if that's how your brain is wired and you like that, especially if you're someone that only has 30 minutes to work out, then absolutely that is going to take the cake. I think what you're describing too, you said something interesting when you were talking kind of about the G-flux, and you were talking about it. It's this overfixation that we sometimes have on optimization and less on maximization, right? Like, how do we maximize? We don't just want to optimize. It's like, if we just optimize for building muscle, then we're missing all these other pillars that are so important. If we just optimize just for cardio, but what about maximizing? Why can't we maximize and just move at a greater flux throughout life? Why can't we have more energy moving through a system overall. If you do more cardio, that's great, but be aware that you probably need to eat a little bit more. It's not all about creating a deficit through cardio. It's about the benefits that come from the cardio independent of the deficit. The deficit comes from life. The deficit comes from how you live your life.
Yeah.
The cardio is just maybe an additional tool for a deficit if you want to play it mathematically, but more than anything, it's the health benefits and the benefits that come downstream of it.
And I think that maybe also, a lot of people look to the bodybuilding community to give them sort of the rules on how to be optimally lean, because they do it to a professional level, and that's the sport is maximal muscle, minimal body fat. And cardio plays a role in the sport of bodybuilding, but it's not prioritized like it is in a CrossFit sport or in people who are pursuing hybrid training, where it's like, I want to run marathons and I want to be jacked. And yes, these athletes that compete in bodybuilding may have a proven system for building a great stage ready physique, but that's not a physique that is maintainable year round. And that is super unhealthy to maintain year round. And if you were talking about how do you maintain lean body composition year round, then we absolutely have to consider that cardiovascular training and even pushing aerobic training hard, not just 30 minutes on the stair stepper, but like learn how to do, aerobic threshold training, learn how to do mixed modal training like we just did out in your gym. It can play a huge role for you long term in maintaining a lower or a healthy body composition that you want.
Totally, man. All right, so we've got walking, we've got lift hard AF, we've got do cardio. What's next?
Switch over to like the food portion of this.
All right.
Eat way more fiber than you do right now. To me, this is something that I did loosely 10 years ago. I focused on getting some fiber. Then I increased that kind of without knowing it and not thinking about it so much. In hindsight, I can see, okay, there was this period of time where I started getting more fiber in my diet. My body composition improved. Then there was a period where I pretty much cut out fiber. I went carnivore, animal-based, and just sort of experimented there and was like, okay, this is how I'm going to fuel myself. Fiber was almost non-existent in the way I was approaching it. I was like, my fiber went way down. And then in the last couple of years, I've readopted this sort of like high fiber mentality. And it is just such an important tool to managing, satiety and the amount of energy that you're consuming versus what your hunger level is and building food volume. And so I have kind of made it my kind of priority with food is, does this meal have protein, lean protein? I wasn't going to make that one of my lists because I think that's been talked about plenty. Sure. But does it have protein and does it have fiber? Is there a sufficient amount of fiber? And the recommended amount of fiber that people are supposed to get is above what the national average is. Most people are under eating fiber. And I almost go as far as to say we need to almost like double the recommendations. Like I'm getting anywhere from 60 to 100 grams of fiber a day. And I do eat a lot of carbohydrates, so it makes it easier for me to consume more plant material and get that in. But it has dramatically changed how easy it is to maintain a lean physique year round by incorporating more fiber as compared to, choosing foods that are high quality but just lack fiber all around.
What are some of your favorite sources of fiber? Because I think people automatically just think a big, beautiful salad or a big, ugly salad, depending on what they view a salad as, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are some? Because I know you post some cool ones on your Instagram. You've got a few different, creative ways to get it in. Yeah,
I mean, I choose fruits that are high fiber. So apples and pears are a daily staple for me. I do oats in the morning and oats with some seeds in them. So chia something like that. I incorporate legumes, beans, like, open up a can of beans, drop half of that can onto your salad. You just got yourself 15, maybe 20 grams of fiber. I love popcorn, air popped popcorn. And, it's depending on how you want to source them and what your feelings are about corn, it's still a great source of fiber. And it's a lot of volume, not a lot of calories, and it's really satisfying to me. Avocados are a staple. Berries are a staple every day for me. So amongst those, 6 things, plus I still, generally have a relatively big salad every day that's based in cabbage, carrot, some leafy greens, cucumber. Those are like my daily drivers that will always get me into the 60 plus grams of fiber, and I don't even really have to think about it too hard.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, no, the popcorn thing is an interesting trick, and I think that it's really, 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 really hard to get like 50 grams of carbs from popcorn. I don't think people realize, like, yes, there's mixed feelings on corn out there. Okay, putting that aside, from a pure like macronutrient and caloric perspective, like it's a pretty safe food. Like it really is. Like it's really hard to go wrong unless you have a sensitivity to corn or you're just hard opposed to corn. Like it's just, dude, it's like you get a big bowl of it and you're still looking at like 20 grams of carbs.
Yeah, and I think the thing to be careful of with popcorn is like, what are you putting on the popcorn? Like movie theater popcorn, maybe not your best choice, but we have an air popper at my house. We have one at the gym. We pop popcorn for people when they come over. You can find some great seasonings to put on it that, don't add a ton of calories or really any calories. And it's just it's like a fun social thing to eat. And it's a great way to get fiber.
For sure. Have you ever put nutritional yeast on it?
Oh, that's my wife's jam. When I'm like, okay, babe, make me the special popcorn. She does that. Yeah. A little bit of butter, a little bit of nutritional yeast. It's so good. And my kids eat it up. They love it.
Like a little, like all it takes is, because I know the oil sprays can be dangerous. I know you've talked about it before because they really do add up. But like that's a great, like popcorn, nutritional yeast, like 3 little sprays of like avocado oil.
Yeah, just to get it to stick. Just to get it to stick. Yeah. It's a hack. Take it.
All right, man. What's next?
Okay. Go to bed before 10 p.m. And this is not necessarily all about like sleep quality. And getting adequate sleep is really important for lean tissue recovery. There's benefits there, but the note I have is that not like all the worst calorie consumption, overeating periods of my life always happen after 9 or 10 p.m. That is where your brain, your hormones, your whole body just is not well equipped to say no to really delicious calories that are just dense, like foods that are just dense with calories. And, I don't hear a lot of people talking about like midday, like, oh, I just, in the middle of the day, I just wound up at, the drive-thru and ate 20 tacos. It's like, no, but you do that at midnight when you're a little buzzed and you're like, let's go do this. It's like nothing good happens after 10 p.m. is like a saying that, older generations will say to younger generations, like, hey, stay out of trouble. It kind of goes for like food consumption too. Yeah. And when I was like younger, in my early 20s, coming out of college, kind of at like a crossroads in my life. What am I going to do? I'm not sure. I was kind of like down, living with my parents. I went through this streak where it was like I just would stay up late every night and, watching TV, and I would always get like hungry, like the munchies. I might be watching Food Network, and it was like for probably 6 months, I would eat at least a half to almost a full jar of peanut butter on the couch at like midnight every night. And it's like that alone is just, I mean, you could make an argument that like peanut butter or nut butters, whether it's like a cashew, who knows what, you can make an argument like, hey, that's a healthy fat. It's like not when you consume a whole jar of it. That's about 2,000 calories that you don't need and isn't really helping support anything good in, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, and certainly not your body composition.
Yeah, we have an old business mentor of mine told me like way early in my career, he always said, HBT. I was like, what's HBT? It's horizontal by 10. It's like always, he's like, just remember that no matter what. Like you want to be successful? He's like, HBT.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to take that one.
All right, what we got next?
Okay, got two more. Now I took this one too far for different stages of my life. I know you've gone down deep rabbit holes of this, but I have noted to say, practice some time restriction in your eating. And it doesn't have to be like, intermittent fasting, a specific window. You don't have to do anything crazy but I think, and it can go like hand in hand with the last one, which is like go to bed before a certain time. It's like have a cutoff point that you say, hey, you know what? This is when I'm going to stop eating. Whether you do it every day, whether you do it a few days a week, I think there's value on a weekly or every few days basis, or even daily if it works for you, just practicing. I'm going to put more or less like an arbitrary timestamp on when I'm going to stop calorie consumption, because it can be very easy to get into mindless consumption of food when we're awake, past or in the morning, in the evening, when we're awake and we're not really like working in our perfect circadian biology. And I know that was like a big learning for me, was like, hey, I'm going to put a restriction on, like, I'm just not going to eat past 7 p.m. And that's going to give me enough time to digest my last meal and get a better night's sleep. And at 8 or 9, do I get pangs of hunger sometimes? Definitely. And it's like, oh, what? I want to go reach for something. But having some arbitrary, timestamp, it allows me to work with this feeling of hunger and recognize like, this isn't like an emergency that I have to fix today. I have to fix right this moment. We are in a society where any moment that you feel even just like this sensation of hunger or this perception of hunger, we have access to things to go and quell that and just like fix the problem, which our biology and our ancestors, our evolutionary past didn't have access to that all the time. And we need to be able to cope with like a little bit of hunger at different times and be like, I don't need to go eat something right now. And it's an exercise in learning emotional regulation, body awareness, and also practicing discipline, that if you want to be really lean and you want to maintain leanness year round, which is a choice, you definitely want to exercise that muscle of like self-discipline. And so having some restriction, some time restriction where you say, I'm just not going to eat here, that can absolutely help. Is it mandatory? No. You can eat every 3 hours around the clock and still be really lean. I don't believe that's the easiest and the most, accessible way for people to do it. So practicing time restriction. And for me, if I'm going to choose a place, it's going to be evening time restricting versus morning restricting. I used to do IF 16 and 8, and I practiced like skipping breakfast for a long time. And I just found my body not loving like tackling the day on empty. I really prefer to fuel big in the early part of the day and then taper off and then stop at a certain point. And usually it's in the 3-hour window before bedtime.
Yeah. And the evidence backs that up too. I mean, it seems to be slightly skewed that way. Some would say it's negligible. But I mean, I kind of live in that particular area of literature. That's like definitely my sweet spot. And I think it's more than negligible. Like it's better to have, it seems, I could safely say, I think it is better to have most of your fuel coming in the morning. And I've learned to I really like breakfast, and being in an intermittent fasting world for so long, I kind of forgot how much I like breakfast. And so, yeah, just flipping that on its head. And people think that time restricted feeding or early time restricted feeding, where you're cutting out food like earlier in the day, that it needs to be like skipping dinner with your family. Like if you do the math, it really doesn't have to be. Like you can have dinner on the early side, which may be hard for some people, but for a lot of people, it really is doable. Just with the amount of people that also work from home or just have fairly flexible hours. Sure, if you're working a 9 to 5 and you're not home till 6, I get it. But if you have dinner at 5 p.m. and you're done eating at 5:20, like if you're eating breakfast at like 8 a.m. or something, or 7 a.m., I mean, you've fasted for a pretty significant time. You've basically done almost the same as a 16-8. You've just flipped it on its head a little bit.
Yeah, so precisely.
Mark Sisson put it really well too. He said, have fractal eating, which I really liked that. It was like where we feel like we have to put these specific time frames with time restricted feeding. Like fractal eating, he's like, some days I skip breakfast. Some days I skip dinner. Some days I skip lunch. Some days I just go periods of time without eating with no real rhyme or reason. And I'm like, that's actually kind of cool. Like sometimes I'll have breakfast and I'll just be like, I don't feel like eating for 7 hours and it's fine. And therefore changing your relationship with hunger. Like hunger isn't the emergency switch.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, hunger isn't an emergency. And that's a mantra I said for a couple of years, where I was like really trying to develop this skill and like flex this muscle. Cause I was like, spent a long time in sort of like a bodybuilding, small frequent meal mentality, where it's like, if I'm going more than a couple hours without eating, I'm just losing muscle, and getting away from that and flexing this muscle of like, I can go periods without eating and it's okay. And it gives me this new sense of like awareness about what hunger actually means to me. It's a relationship that is very skewed and it's a poor relationship that a lot of people have. And then the last thing I was going to say about this too is thinking if you get too fixated on a time, like a time schedule of eating, I don't think, certainly for, let's say us, at this latitude where we live, it's like, it doesn't really honor that the year is very, the seasons impact our circadian biology and our hunger cues, and, saying I'm going to stop eating at 5 p.m. every day, no matter what. Well, that works in the winter because it's like, it's, the sunset, like after you finish your last meal at 5, like it's dark and you're starting to wind down. Whereas now it's like, it's light out until 9:30, in the evening. And I want to go out and play, I'm going to go play 9 holes of golf at 7 p.m. Like, and then I'm going to, I don't want to say that like the last meal was here, like just having the ability to be flexible with that and know that there's no one time period that's best, but to be able to play around with like, okay, maybe a few days a week, I am going to shut it off here. Or, I'm going to use the 3-hour time period from when I'm going to go to bed or when sun sets, like that's going to be my time frame that I'm going to experiment with.
Yeah, 100%, man. All right, what's your 7th and final one?
Yeah, this was, we were talking about this earlier, but it's sort of, maintenance of lean body composition or maintenance of any body, body composition has its skills and habits that need to be repeated over and over and over again. The last one is one time per year. Let's just say you're going to spend maybe 4 to 8 weeks where you're going to really work on optimization, maximization of the skills that are helping you stay lean throughout the year. So you're going to push your leanness even further, kind of like a summer shred or a prep for, maybe you're not going to do a show, but like, hey, I'm going to go from 10% down to 8% for this period. It's the exercise of pushing the thing that you're trying to maintain to a higher level or a more extreme level that will make coming back to maintenance of that more sustainable level be truly more sustainable and feel easier. I eat 3,000 calories a day to maintain. Well, for this 4 to 6 week period, I'm going to drop that down and I'm going to go into a more substantial deficit, and I'm going to hit these points a little bit harder, and I'm going to watch my body composition come down, maybe even like 1 to 2, 3%. And that's not going to be my sustainable state for the rest of the year. But the exercise of like, I'm going to push myself to something that's hard and unsustainable is a way of almost resetting and being like, wow, my maintenance is truly an easier place for me to sit year round because I just extended myself to do the harder thing for this defined window of time. And the caveat with that is somebody who wants to be lean year round, you are probably in the category of you can get very easily attached to seeing leaner versions of yourself and almost to an unhealthy level where you're like, oh, I saw myself leaner. I want to do this. I want to do this year round. I want to feel this lean year round. So pick a time period, make it very specific. Say for these six weeks, I'm gonna lean out, and then purposefully take yourself right back to your year round maintenance level. Don't try and live down in that harder, lower caloried, extra lean state for too long, because that's where you start to see these huge diminishing returns on energy level, mood, and just sense of self and body image.
What's the name of the, people have talked about it before and I always forget it, that Japanese, like once a year, the Japanese do, it's like cultural to do something really hard, right? I can't remember what it's called. There's this thing, and if you know it, put it in the comments, but it's been talked about on this channel with a number of guests. It's funny how it comes up. And it's almost like a mental reset for them. They do one, hard thing. Maybe they go climb a mountain. Maybe they, ride their bike 100 miles. It's just like, it's all relative, but you do one really hard thing per year. It's almost like you're referencing this from like a body composition standpoint. It's kind of cool. It's like do one hard thing per year, and it's like you throw yourself that bone. You give yourself that, because I know as a man I wrestle sometimes with being lean enough, being strong enough, and expecting that I need to push it like that all the time to be a man, right?
Yeah.
Like it's who I am. It's what people see me as. And if I'm not throwing that dog a bone every now and then, you feel insufficient, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you almost satisfy that a little bit by saying, yes, I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to get wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
Like I am going to acknowledge that there is a component and a part of myself that feels whole when I chase that. But if you were to chase that year round, you would not be whole. It would be consuming you. So you take a dedicated amount of time and you say, yep, I'm gonna give into that, and I'm going to go. And you can almost show yourself that, yeah, that's not sustainable. I don't want to do that.
There's 3 things I want to say about this. I'm going to try to remember them all. If you're in this category, like you just said, we share this in common. When you go and do these things that are hard, I think it's important to talk about it with your circle of people, your close people, because you run the risk of going and trying to do it and then staying in there for too long. So have somebody else, either it's a coach or a loved one or somebody who understands why you do what you do, to sort of be your accountability partner, to be like, okay, you did it, now it's time to get out. Don't get stuck there. The second thing is, a lot of people do this on January 1st. They think this is the time to go and do the hard thing. And I think that's a big mistake. I think people should make January 1st the start of slow habit building to find your baseline. Get into a good rhythm. You don't push into the hard thing when you're lost. It's like, hey, I don't have good habits right now. I'm really not like in a good place with my body composition. Let's go do the hardest thing possible today, and that's going to get me back on track. It won't get you back on track. You will push hard, and then you'll rebound back to possibly worse habits. So this is something to do when you are already in a good rhythm. It's saying, I'm in a good rhythm, I'm happy, but by pushing yourself, you don't become complacent over time. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do the hard thing, and then I can reset to my maintenance, and it will help me carry through and not finish the year in a bad place where I'm thinking I got to fix everything on January 1st. And I know I said 3 things, but 2 are all I'm going to be able to get out of my brain right now. I forgot the 3rd.
No, totally good. Yeah, I think that having that circle that can help you with that, it sounds cheesy at first, but that is one of the most important things that you can have is like a support system to keep you in check a little bit. Athletes have it. And if you're someone that's just recreationally wanting to look a certain way, I mean, in essence, you are kind of treating yourself like an athlete. So it's not weird or woo-woo to tell someone that like, hey, just keep me in check a little bit, slap me silly if I start getting weird on this.
Yes. Beautiful. My wife, that's who I tell. I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Slap me around if I'm becoming a mess over here. I need someone to hold me accountable.
Well, Marcus, where can everyone find you, man?
Right here on YouTube, Marcus Philly, or on Instagram. Those are some of the best places to go and capture what I'm doing with my content and how we're coaching and running my business, which is functional bodybuilding. So training programs for the athlete that wants to be functional and look good. They're all combined in one.
Right on, my man.